Great, and we're live. So welcome everybody to another remote interview. My name is Lisette and I'm interviewing people and companies who are doing great things remotely. And today on the line, I have Peter Wilson from Brisbane, Australia. I hope I said Brisbane right. So in America, it's Brisbane. But I know in Australia, it's Brisbane. And Peter, you're the managing director at Kinetic Innovative Staffing. And when I looked on the website, it says you help businesses utilize the benefits of offshoring and outsourcing in the Philippines. So I'm assuming you're connecting businesses in Australia to businesses or to workers in the Philippines. But before we get into all of that, let me start with the first question because we'll get into all of that. What does your virtual office look like? What do you need to get your work done?
Well, this is it basically. So this is where I work from most of the time, but obviously being remote and virtual, it does mean that I am fairly mobile as well. So if I want to go out, I have the office with me. So, but I'm the only person in Australia. We have some management staff in the Philippines and recruiters and operations people. And then basically we provide, as you said, a connection for Australian clients to connect with Filipinos, the Filipino workforce. So we obviously use technology for that, and a virtual office is all we need to do that successfully.
So why the Philippines?
Well, Australia is the same time zone as the Philippines. The Philippines has a very large workforce of English-speaking employees. It's about 120 million people in the Philippines. Great work ethic, loyal, hardworking. Some great skills. So most of our clients come to us initially the cost side of things, but then very quickly realise that it's not just about cost; it's actually about access to talent and skills as well.
I was going to ask actually.
And I guess over the years, America probably started this type of thing into the Philippines. But the problem with Filipinos working for American clients is the fact that they have to work basically the graveyard shift overnight if they want to align themselves with the daytime in the US. So we generally have a bit of a competitive advantage in terms of attracting good quality staff that want to work the daytime shift for an Australian client. So, and the other thing I guess we do, which is a little bit different. So the BPO industry, which is the business process outsourcing industry in the Philippines, isn't new. But there's not too many of us that are doing it where we allow our staff to work from home in the Philippines. And again, I think that's a big competitive advantage for us because employees in the Philippines want to be able to avoid the traffic. The traffic's horrendous in places like Manila, and being able to work from home gives them that ability to spend more time with their family.
Interesting. So there's a benefit then for both sides. One in that Australian businesses can save on costs, probably significant costs, by finding talent in the Philippines. And then in the Philippines, you can avoid the commute, work from home, spending more time with your family. On that side, right, and then you win big there. Interesting. Yeah. I can imagine that the time zone is a really big advantage, actually, because who wants to work the graveyard shift? I mean, there's very few.
Exactly. And look, I guess, again, from an Australian perspective, it's a significant advantage in that, the Americans probably have spent a lot of money and invested a lot of money in terms of training up staff in terms of a lot of their skills. And, the ability to be able to work from home in the day is a big attractor for us to attract good quality staff. And that's what our clients are looking for here in Australia.
So how does it work then? If somebody, can you give me an idea of what the hiring process looks like? What does somebody go through when they're looking for talent?
Sure. Look, it's actually very simple, and it's very low risk, and it's not much different to what I'd imagine you would go through there in the US, so or Australia in terms of a typical local recruitment process. So generally, a client will come to us considering how to do this. We'll ask them for a copy of a position description for a role. We'll then go through a recruitment process in the Philippines. So that means we'll be looking at our databases. We've got access to various large databases. One of them has 4 million employees in it. So a very large pool of talent. We also advertise in the Philippines. And then we present our clients with a short list of potential applicants. We ask our clients to then review the shortlist. We then schedule interviews, generally using this type of technology interviewing the candidates face to face, and just go through the traditional recruitment process. A lot of the roles we do recommend a lot of testing as well. So, for example, today we're working on an architectural role for an architectural firm in Sydney, and they're looking for drafting type staff. So they've given us a test for them to do. So as part of the recruitment process, we ask the candidates to complete the test. That's actually something we try to focus a lot on in terms of testing. But yeah, the recruitment process is very simple and straightforward, very similar to the process you'd expect, hiring someone locally in the US. Ultimately, if we go through the process and they find someone they like, then we make the candidates an offer in the Philippines. If they're working, they generally have to give their existing employer notice. And then through that period of 30-day notice, we just make sure the candidate's all set up at home in terms of being able to do their work effectively and productively. So, things like making sure they have a second monitor, good quality headset, check their internet speed and connection. The Philippines isn't, a first world country when it comes to internet speed. So we do make sure they all have a second backup internet connection.
Oh yeah?
Just in case. Yeah, we think that's important. Look, we don't guarantee 100% uptime all day, but we do have tools to help manage timesheets. And if, for example, someone was to lose half an hour during the day because of an internet outage, they would just make up for it at night time. We have very few problems. Actually, when we first started the business 3 years ago, I thought we'd have a lot more problems, but we really have very few considering.
Interesting. So
we have a lot of great.
You have a lot of great what? I'm sorry to interrupt.
So we have a lot of very happy clients. We tend to say to our clients, particularly those that haven't done this before, a lot of them come to us and they're very excited and they look at the cost and think, well, I'm going to save a lot of money, which ultimately they will do over a period of time. But rather than moving a whole team of people, let's say, for example, they'll get the whole finance department, we definitely say to them, no, that's not the way to do it. Just start with one person. So we just say, just start with one. And then, maybe after a few months, the business then would be ready to think about the second and third and onwards. Because it's important for the local business here to get familiar with how to manage and work with remote staff. Not that it's difficult, but it can obviously mean that businesses need to change their processes slightly. And we work really, it's important for us to get, we want to make sure that it's successful for the business. So there's a couple of things we recommend. So in the business itself, identifying someone who's going to be like a champion to make this work, someone who's going to buddy up with the person that's working in the Philippines. Make it part of their KPIs to make this successful over 6 months. So get them involved in the recruitment process, get them involved in the selection process, interviewing, testing, and then they take ownership of it. So as you can imagine, people do feel a little bit threatened by offshoring. But not, having said that, I'm not really aware of too many roles that have been replaced here in Australia. It's mostly businesses that want to grow, that want to add depth to their pool of skills and resources in the business. It allows them with their local workforce to develop their local workforce further, and their local workforce can maybe focus more on the business development side of things rather than the transactional side of business.
Right.
So it can work really effectively.
So what are the things then that businesses struggle with when they first start working with an offshore team? What are the common things that you see?
Look, I think as long as they do identify someone in the business who's going to take some ownership of making this work in the Philippines, we have fairly few problems. What would be some problems? I think, look, there's just a whole heap of different things to do to overcome the problems, though. So as many, face-to-face type meetings, we recommend trying to catch up with the staff member every day, face-to-face, develop the rapport, the relationship with the staff member, treat them as though they're one of your, local employees, get them involved as much as possible. We recommend, for example, let's say you have a 6-monthly staff meeting in the office in the US or Australia. We'd recommend to get them involved, have a webcam up, get them involved in the staff meeting, get them to participate, get them involved in the review, performance appraisal process. We've got some clients that do it really well. Like, for example, the first, some of our clients, for example, the first day the staff member starts, they'll walk them around the office on an iPad and they'll introduce them to the guy that runs the warehouse, the factory, or the people on the floor, and get really embrace it as part of their business and culture. So the ones that do it well really don't have any problems. I guess it's the ones that really the ones that probably don't do it as successfully would be the ones that see them as being a contractor or just an external resource, and don't really try to embed them into their business culturally, and treat them as a full-time employee.
I really like the idea of introducing them via the iPad, taking them around the office and actually introducing them. It's a really nice, it's a nice idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That same company, like as you're probably aware, you can set up groups on Skype. So you can have a group of people in the same, chat, if you like. So all of their staff in the Philippines and then also their local team are all in that same sort of chat sort of environment. So not necessarily just talking about work, but also talking about what they did on the weekend, and try to get some benefits out of this cultural exchange that can be really rewarding and rich. So talk about the Philippines, teach them a bit about the Philippines, teach them a bit about Australia, Australian football. As much as possible, trying to encourage that interaction between the local and offshore workforce.
Are there strong cultural differences, or what are the cultural differences, I should ask, between Philippines and Australia? That's always an interesting question. People always ask about, like, how do I do with culture? But I'm curious, like, what are the stereotypes?
Yeah. Well, look, Australia is a very multicultural society as it is. So, I couldn't really describe what a typical Australian is. We're a mixture of people from around the world, and we have a lot of Filipinos that actually work here, in Australia. Philippines, they're culturally, I guess they've had a lot of influence from the US. The US military had a very big presence in the Philippines up until recently. They're culturally very much aligned, I guess, to sort of Western type culture. English is a second language, but middle class skilled sort of workforce people are generally very good at English as well. So there is no communication issues. Generally, they have an American accent, not an Australian accent. So
interesting.
We won't hold that against them.
Ha! That's funny. So what kind of management techniques do you generally use? I mean, because you said that, managing somebody offshore is slightly different than managing somebody in the office. And of course, I can imagine, of course, that's true. So what are the different management styles and techniques that you guys use, or that the companies use, I suppose, because you're just connecting people and then.
Yeah. We sort of, our role isn't just the upfront recruitment. We sort of help with retention as well. So we don't, like, in terms of even the way we get remunerated and so on, it's just an ongoing monthly fee, if you like. So we manage the payroll and all the compliance issues in the Philippines. So we like our clients to see us as being their HR department in the Philippines. So it kind of helps, because our local team up there in the Philippines, if someone's feeling a little bit unloved one day, it might be that their local contact here in Australia has been a little busy with work, so they might think, they might wonder if they're doing a good job or not. So, and Filipinos tend to be probably less direct than Australians. That's probably one cultural difference. So they may, not feel as comfortable in raising sort of an issue with say, their Australian counterpart. So being able to raise that via a Philippine-based team, and I can then speak to the clients about it. And it can certainly help with retention, and it may be that they're doing such a great job that their client here doesn't feel they need to be talking to them on that regular basis. But in terms of the qualities of the client, I think the ones that work really well are the ones where people embrace it as part of their business, and they don't see it as a threat; they see it as an opportunity. So they and typically that can be from the top down. So that particular one I was talking about before, with walking around an iPad through the office, that's actually the managing director has really been embracing it and doing that. So I think people that are willing to think about things differently, if there is little issues in terms of working with people remotely, not just seeing it as a problem, but actually thinking about what the solutions might be to overcome the problems, whether or not it's maybe changing the technology they're using or slightly changing the way they do their processes in the office. But it's generally not much that's required to make it work. Yes, the people that are open to it, they don't feel threatened by it, that can also see it as enhancing their careers, because there's no question that technology is rapidly evolving and making all this possible in terms of dealing with people remotely. So I think having in your resume the fact that you've got these skills to actually manage and work with people remotely is actually a really great thing. So, for the people that are lucky enough to have the opportunity to work with these staff remotely out of these businesses, I think it's certainly great for their career as well, because over their careers, it's happening more and more.
For sure.
I mean, my 15-year-old son, for example, playing games on the computer at night, he'll have maybe 60 sort of cyber friends online playing together, and it can be all over the world. And it's for them as they come through in their careers, it's going to be something which is just second nature to them.
Yeah, I think the same. It's like when kids, when I see kids in the video games that they're playing and who they're collaborating with, and just the open space programming world in particular, I mean, it really is going to be second nature. They're going to think like, what do you mean? Of course I'm going to collaborate with people all over the world. So I have to ask about one thing that I saw on the website, and I think a couple of blog articles, or maybe it was some of the videos that I was watching to prepare for this interview, which is the screenshots and keystroke monitoring. And I ask because it's controversial. Some people are all for it, and some people think like they're totally against it. So I want to ask, when does that get used? Does it get used all the time? How do people, like, I know if somebody were monitoring me, I would feel very self-conscious about that, because I do Facebook as much as the next person. So how does it work?
Yeah. Look, I guess it's something that it's a third-party product, and we offer it to our clients simply because the people that are familiar with having a staff member sitting in their office all day, it's a big step for them to potentially have people working outside the office, and they're having them work in another country outside the office. I guess it helps manage their fear, about, is the person working for me? Are they just doing my work? Are they working for other people at the same time? When we speak to candidates for the roles, in the initial conversation, we raise it with them. We say, look, if you are successful in this role, these are the sorts of things that you're going to be able, if you want to proceed on this basis, you have to accept. And normally, I mean, most people realise that they do need to provide that transparency and visibility to their employer. It's not really dissimilar to having someone having the ability to walk past, the screen in the office, if you like. From time to time, we very rarely, in fact, I can't remember any client ever ringing us up and saying, why such and such got this on their screen. It really doesn't happen. It's mostly used for the time sheeting, so actually tracking, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, just making sure they and allocating their time to their correct projects and so on.
I like the idea.
It's a good point. I don't think, it's a good point. Often when we're speaking to clients, the clients say to us, well, gee, we wish we could use this here with our local onshore staff, but the reality is that that's not going to happen.
Right. I can imagine though that it's a tool for alleviating fear for people who are first going offshoring, so that they can understand. And I've actually had people say before that they've used video. For example, they have the video on when they're working, so that people can actually see them. And I think, that's simulating what it's like to be in the office together. So it's maybe just a different form of that. So
yeah,
I can understand.
And in fact, I was just speaking to a client today, and actually quite often I will suggest that clients even think about putting a webcam in their office here in Australia, in a public space, so that if their employees in the Philippines want to sort of feel part of the team or see what's going on in the office, they can dial in remotely into a remote webcam and get a feel for what's happening in the open space of the office, so they feel a bit more involved.
Yeah, I've seen a number of companies do that actually. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, so it can work both ways in terms of developing that relationship.
Yeah, I've seen a number of companies do that. And at first it sounds really big brother, but then when you see it in action, you can see actually it's a very team building, bonding experience just to be able to see each other like that. So I'm all for the
Yeah,
webcams actually. So interesting. So what other tools are there a specific set of tools that you recommend that people use, or is it different by each client? How does that work?
yeah, well, generally each client will have their own setup. So, some might be a sort of a Google Apps type business, and others may be a Microsoft Office business. So it really just depends on their existing infrastructure and the types of accounting packages or ERP systems they're using. We generally, obviously, they need to have something to collaborate. So they need to have something like Skype or Zoom or Google Hangouts, of course. But in terms of the other systems, whether or not they use cloud-based applications or they use Citrix to remote desktop into, or their staff using Citrix to remote desktop into their systems, it really does depend on the client individually in terms of what technology they've got set up.
Okay. And I'm curious, you also have 4 million candidates in the database. That's a lot of candidates. And I'm guessing it spans a breadth of different kinds of skills too. So it's not just programmers, it's, like you said, the designers and everybody.
Accountants. There's this particular database is a public database for recruiters. So if you have a recruitment license in the Philippines, you can access it. So, but it's a little bit different. I'm not sure how it works in the US, but in Australia, it's more employers will advertise for people, on various online job boards, and then staff will apply for roles. I guess it's not dissimilar to LinkedIn in that a lot of people put their resumes up on LinkedIn now, and people then will access those LinkedIn resumes to find people for potential roles. So that particular database is really big in the Philippines, and with 4 million people in it, and they all maintain their own resumes up online. So it actually does. It means that, for example, if we get a position description for a role and it's for they're wondering if we've got people with some really obscure type of software skill. Within the space of a couple of minutes, we can give them an idea. Is there 1,000 people, or is there a couple hundred people, or is there no one with those types of skills in the Philippines? So, actually, when we do a lot of, even if I've got clients that are talking to me, which are only a couple of kilometres from where I'm based now, I still try to recommend that we do the meeting when we're sort of doing that initial phase of talking about the opportunity for them to go offshore. I will still try to do the meeting online. And simply because I want to demonstrate to them a lot of the tools that they can use to make it successful ultimately if they move forward. I'll generally get a couple of my sort of team in the Philippines online as well, so they can meet them and helps answer the questions about can they speak English and things like that, just simply by, and even showing them. So using Zoom, which is the software that we're using now for this conversation, it's got a fantastic feature where you can share your screen while you're talking as well. So not only can we see each other face to face and talk face to face, but I could be, for example, I can pull up that database, 4 million people, and we can do some collaborative searching of the databases, and then the client gets excited about it, and then we can move on to the next role. It's in their marketing department or their finance department or operations or whatever, and very quickly they can get a feel for the pool and the depth of talent that's available. So, and as I say, that's partly the reason that even clients that are very within driving distance of me here, I typically try to do that, those initial meetings online to be able to show them all these things.
Interesting. I bet I have the same experience in terms of when I give workshops to companies. I offer the workshop online, but most companies, it's still too weird for them to actually take a workshop online. So I do now a hybrid where we start in person and then we go online. And they're always completely blown away by how good it is when they go online because they haven't seen the new video. I mean, video conferencing in the past has been notoriously painful. So I think people are really surprised by how far technology's come in the last 5 years and how many options there are now.
And look, that's right. I mean, some people don't even have a headset on their computer. So you ask them to do an online meeting and they think, oh, we can't do an online meeting. But as you know, with this product like Zoom, for example, you can invite them to attend the video via computer, and at the same time they can use their traditional mobile phone or office phone to call a number, a local number. And for example, there's one in Sydney for people to call. So we get them to call the Sydney number, and then the audio they're online with people in the Philippines, with me here in Brisbane, and at the same time we can share the screen to demonstrate a lot of those tools we've been discussing about the screenshot monitor and also the database, for example.
Okay, so a couple more questions. I have a question about personality types and people that certainly you've come across people who think that they could do remote working, but then they're just not suited for it. And what kind of personality types work and don't work?
Yeah, I guess that's right. So, I guess the benefit of going into an office is you do have that social environment. So it's not just business, but you can, going to lunch with your colleagues and, getting that social interaction. So I guess people that want that, may prefer to work in an office, but when they, in our particular model anyway, when they offset that against the ability to work from home, not having to commute, a lot of the people that we actually get online would have commuted maybe 3 or 4 hours each way to get to the office. My general manager, for example, she has to commute 3.5 hours each way. And it's not commuting in an air-conditioned car. It's in the Philippines. It's getting a tricycle, then a jeepney, then lining up for half an hour to actually get on the train or the bus. And so the people that get distracted, you need to have a reasonably quiet area in your house to work productively. I still think even though you're working from home, you can get up and you can go out about your business. You can get dinner started. You can take a break outside. Go and have a chat to your neighbours. It's no real different in terms of how you can socialise in the office. You can socialise. You can have friends online on Skype or whatever. But yeah, you've got to have a reasonable self-discipline to work remotely, I guess, without having a manager or a supervisor breathing down your neck all the time. But I think people tend to find other avenues to sort of satisfy those other sort of social needs and so on, whether or not it's on the night or weekends or throughout the day, just using those tools I mentioned or whatever.
I can imagine that with a nightmare commute, like 3 to 4 hours of being shoved in trains and amongst so many people, that finding a way to socialize would be the least of your concerns. I mean, that really sounds like a really big problem in the Philippines, is the traffic. That really sounds, like I know in major metropolitan areas in the US and even in the Netherlands, the government has been asking people to shift their hours and using alternate, coming in later or even earlier in order to minimize the traffic jams that are happening. So it sounds like it's just really a problem in the Philippines. So curious.
There's 20 million odd people in Manila. That's their the capital city. They do shift work as well though, because there is this significant pool of people that work, say for the US, that work the graveyard shift, and there'll be people that work the mid shift for the UK. But it's horrendous. It's horrendous. There's in terms of there's not much investment in public infrastructure, trains and buses and so on. So everyone tries to get to work on buses, and then you add a little bit of rain. So it might start. If it rains, you can add another hour to your trip if you can get to work at all. So yeah, working remotely in that sense is sort of also an advantage.
Sounds like it's
the other thing, I guess.
Sorry, I was going to say, sounds like it's a full-time job just commuting on some days.
I mean, yeah, look, I certainly couldn't do it. I wouldn't be productive when I got to work if I had to commute those sorts of hours. Yeah, the other thing is, I guess, when you're not sort of saying, okay, you've got to go to this particular location in a particular place. I mean, it means we can access resources all around the Philippines. So there's 120 million odd people in the Philippines. So we do have people in other islands on the Philippines. I believe there's about 7,000 islands that make up the Philippines. Obviously, there's main ones, and we have staff that are on all those islands. So it can help from a diversification perspective as well. So there's being on the sort of the edge of the Pacific. They tend to get hit by a lot of typhoons and so on. So if let's say, for example, Manila got hit by a typhoon, very difficult for their staff to get to work, add a little bit of rain to the traffic problems, and it's in flood water. So, so if you've got staff, let's say you've got 10 staff in an office and none of those people can get in, it's maybe if you lose 2 or 3 lose their connections because of the typhoon, and it's not going to have disastrous consequences for the business. So I think from a diversification perspective, it can be a good thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine for a company, you'd want to have the processes in place to be able to work remotely, even if you didn't need to, so that when these things happen, your business doesn't just shut down. I mean, you want to be able to keep going in as many situations as possible. So yeah, that's a huge business incentive, I'm sure. So just a couple of last questions, but for people who are just starting out in looking for offshore opportunities, what advice would you give them? What are some of the rookie mistakes people make?
Yeah, I think people try to do it too big too quickly. So just even no matter how big your business is, just start with one. If you've got a bigger business, then maybe just start with one in each department. So start with one in marketing, one in finance, one in operations, one in logistics. You know what I mean? And then each of those departments, have one of their goals is to actually make it successful within 6 months, and then after 6 months they can move on to the second and the third. So you're doing it rather than moving a whole team of people and expecting it just to work, on day one. I think is a big mistake that a lot of people have made in the past. So that's probably one of them. What else? I think focusing on recruitment. So, the recruitment phase is very important, making sure you get the right person. So don't rush that. Do as much testing as possible in relation to potential staff members.
I really like that.
And
so starting...
Having a buddy in the office, I think, is important too. So having a sort of a champion in the office that's going to... again, has the responsibility to be involved with, the both upfront selection recruitment process, but then the ongoing development of that person and the transfer of knowledge to an extent to that person as well.
I love it. So starting small and don't go crazy. Start small and iterate and focus getting on the right people and having a champion or a buddy in the office that helps connect the person to the team. That's really good advice, I think. Those are really good. So last question, which is if people want to find out more about you and about Kinetic Innovative Staffing, where's the best place to go, and what's the best way to contact you?
Oh, look, we'd love people obviously to visit our website, so www.KIStaffing.com. That has all our contact details online.
And great videos, and it's a really nice looking website. So indeed, easy to understand and navigate. So KIStaffing.com, and I'll also put that in the show notes so that people can find it. So great. Well, I really appreciate your time today. I know a lot of people are looking for offshoring resources. Clearly, it's a lot of business incentive to do that, especially when you can save so much on cost. And there's these pools of talent that are looking for work. So great. Thanks so much today for the time.
Thanks, Lizette. Nice to meet you.
All right, everybody. Until next time, be powerful.